In the heart of Silicon Valley, surrounded by modern homes and tech campuses, stands a mansion that defies logic. It sprawls across 6 acres, a labyrinth of 161 rooms that twist and turn in impossible directions. Staircases climb towards ceilings and stop. Doors open into walls. Windows look into other rooms. And for 38 years, the sound of hammers never ceased, day and night, as if the house itself refused to be finished. This is the Winchester Mystery House, and it wasn't built for the living. It was built as a prison for the dead. Sarah Lockwood Pardee was born in 1839 into a respectable New Haven family. She was educated, cultured, petite in stature but strong in spirit. In 1862, she married William Wirt Winchester, heir to the Winchester Repeating Arms Company. The Winchester rifle had become known as the gun that won the West, a weapon so effective it changed the course of American expansion. The fortune it generated was immense. Sarah's future seemed golden. But darkness was already gathering around her. In 1866, Sarah gave birth to a daughter, Annie Pardee Winchester. The child lived only 40 days before succumbing to a childhood illness that medical science couldn't explain. Sarah's grief was absolute. She withdrew from society, her joy extinguished. 15 years later, in 1881, her husband William died of tuberculosis. At 42 years old, Sarah Winchester was alone, wealthy beyond measure, and drowning in sorrow. She inherited over $20 million, equivalent to over $500 million today, and a 50% stake in the Winchester Company that guaranteed her an income of $1,000 a day. Money meant nothing. Her family was gone. It was then, according to accounts passed down through the years, that Sarah sought answers from the other side. She visited a medium in Boston, a woman who claimed to speak with the dead. During the seance, the medium's voice changed. She said the spirits were angry. The Winchester rifle had killed thousands, tens of thousands, across America and beyond. Indigenous peoples, soldiers, settlers, innocents caught in the violence of westward expansion. Their blood stained the Winchester name. The medium told Sarah that her family's deaths were not coincidence but vengeance. The spirits of those killed by Winchester rifles had cursed her bloodline, taking her child and her husband as payment for the lives the rifle had stolen. But there was a way to appease them. The medium instructed Sarah to move west, to build a house for the spirits, a place where they could dwell. And she must never stop building. If construction ceased, the spirits would know, and they would come for her. As long as the hammers rang, as long as the house grew, Sarah would live. Stop, and she would join the dead. Sarah left New Haven and traveled to San Jose, California, where in 1884 she purchased an unfinished farmhouse on acres of land. Then the construction began. She hired carpenters, laborers, craftsmen, and gave them a single instruction: never stop. Work continued 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for the next 38 years. No architect drew up plans. Sarah herself directed the work, often sketching designs on scraps of paper or tablecloths in the middle of the night, as if guided by whispers only she could hear. Rooms were added, torn down, rebuilt. Wings extended in directions that made no structural sense. The house grew like a living organism, chaotic and uncontrolled. But this was no ordinary construction. The house Sarah built was a maze designed to confuse, to trap, to hold spirits within its walls so they could never find her. Staircases were built that led nowhere, rising to ceilings where they simply ended. Doors opened into empty space, sheer drops to the ground below. Hallways twisted back on themselves. One door, when opened, revealed a solid brick wall inches from the frame. Windows were installed in floors, looking down into rooms below. Secret passageways snaked through the structure, accessible only to those who knew where to press, where to turn. Some rooms had dozens of entrances and exits. Others could only be reached by walking through multiple chambers, each one a deliberate dead end for anything trying to follow. Sarah believed the spirits were hunting her. Every night, she would retreat to a special seance room at the heart of the house, a blue room with only one entrance and 3 exits, so she could escape if the spirits drew too close. She wore a veil even inside her own home. Servants reported hearing her voice in the seance room, speaking to people who weren't there, receiving instructions on how to build, where to build, what the spirits demanded. The number 13 appeared obsessively throughout the house. 13 windows in certain rooms. 13 panels in walls. 13 steps on staircases. Chandeliers with 13 lights. It was a number of protection, or perhaps a number the spirits required. The workers noticed things. Footsteps in empty hallways when no one was there. Tools moved from where they'd been placed. Cold drafts in rooms with no windows. The sound of breathing behind them when they worked alone. Some claimed to see shadows moving through doorways, figures that vanished when approached. One carpenter swore he saw a man standing in a hall wearing old-fashioned clothing, staring at him with hollow eyes before dissolving into nothing. The workers spoke in whispers about it, but they didn't leave. The pay was good, and Mrs. Winchester was insistent. Build, always build. Sarah rarely left the house. She became a recluse, glimpsed only by her staff and the occasional visitor she deemed acceptable. Locals spoke of her with a mixture of pity and fear. The eccentric widow building a mansion for ghosts. Some believed she had gone mad with grief. Others thought she knew something the rest of the world didn't. At night, the house blazed with light in some windows while others remained dark. The sound of hammering echoed through the valley, rhythmic and relentless, a heartbeat that never stopped. Then, on April 18, 1906, the earth moved. The great San Francisco earthquake struck with devastating force, and the Winchester mansion shook on its foundations. Walls cracked. Chimneys collapsed. Parts of the house caved in on themselves, revealing rooms that had been sealed shut, chambers that contained nothing but dust and silence. Sarah was trapped in a bedroom when the quake hit, and it took her servants hours to free her from the rubble. When she emerged, covered in plaster dust, she reportedly said the spirits were angry because she had built too much in the front of the house. From that day forward, she ordered that construction focus on the back, away from the street, as if trying to hide from something approaching. The house continued to grow. By the time of Sarah's death in 1922, it had ballooned into a 7-story monstrosity, though the earthquake had reduced it to 4 stories in places. 161 rooms spread across the property. 47 fireplaces, many of them leading nowhere. 17 chimneys. 10,000 windows. 2,000 doors. Miles of hallways that looped and doubled back. The total cost of construction over 38 years was estimated at $5.5 million, a sum that would be astronomical today. And yet there was no master plan, no blueprint, nothing that explained why it existed in the form it did. Sarah Winchester died quietly in her sleep on September 5, 1922. She was 82 years old. After her death, the house was sold and eventually opened to the public as a tourist attraction. But the stories didn't stop. If anything, they intensified. Tourists walking through the halls reported feeling watched. Cameras malfunctioned in specific rooms. Cold spots appeared and disappeared without explanation. The sound of footsteps echoed through empty corridors. Doors that had been locked were found standing open. Staff working late at night heard voices, whispers that seemed to come from the walls themselves. One of the most frequently reported apparitions is that of a man in work clothes from the late 1800s, seen standing in hallways or looking out windows. Some believe he is one of the workers who died during construction, though no official records exist of deaths on the property. Others think he is something else, a spirit drawn to the house by Sarah's construction, now unable to leave. People have photographed strange orbs of light, shadow figures that don't correspond to anyone present, and mists that seem to move with purpose. The ballroom, one of the most ornate rooms in the house, is a hotspot for activity. Visitors report hearing music. When no one is playing anything, the faint sound of a piano or strings. Cold breezes move through the room, despite sealed windows. In the seance room, where Sarah communed with the dead, people feel overwhelmed by sadness, a grief so profound it brings them to tears without understanding why. Some refuse to enter, claiming the air feels thick, wrong, like stepping into a space that doesn't want them there. Paranormal investigators have descended on the Winchester Mystery House for decades, bringing equipment to measure electromagnetic fields, temperature fluctuations, and audio anomalies. They've recorded EVP, electronic voice phenomena, that seem to respond to questions. Voices saying, "Sarah," and "help," and words in languages no one present speaks. Thermal cameras capture cold spots shaped like human figures. Motion sensors trigger in empty rooms. The investigators leave with more questions than answers, because the house doesn't reveal its secrets easily. It keeps them close, hidden behind doors that open into walls. There's a theory among researchers that Sarah Winchester succeeded. That the house, with its impossible architecture and deliberate confusion, actually works as a spirit trap. The dead enter, drawn by the construction, by Sarah's summons, and they cannot find their way out. The hallways twist too much. The staircases lead nowhere. The doors deceive. And so they remain, walking the same corridors, searching for exits that don't exist, forever caught in the maze Sarah built. If this is true, then the Winchester Mystery House isn't just haunted. It's a prison, and the inmates have been there for over a century. Some visitors claim the house feels alive, as though it's aware of their presence. Doors close behind them with no breeze to explain it. They hear their names whispered in empty rooms. They feel touches on their shoulders, gentle but insistent, guiding them away from certain areas. One woman reported seeing a figure in Victorian dress standing at the top of a staircase to nowhere, beckoning her to climb. When she refused, the figure vanished, but she could feel anger radiating from the space where it had stood. The staff who work there have their own stories, the ones they don't always share with tourists. Objects move. Overnight. Chairs placed in one configuration are found rearranged by morning. Locked doors are discovered open. The smell of old perfume drifts through hallways with no source. And in the deepest parts of the house, the areas not open to the public, there's a feeling of something waiting, something patient and old and not entirely human. Sarah Winchester spent nearly 4 decades building her mansion, pouring her fortune and her sanity into a structure meant to protect her from vengeful spirits. She died believing the work was incomplete, that stopping would mean her death. And perhaps she was right, because even now, more than 100 years later, the house still feels unfinished, as though it's waiting for someone to pick up the hammer and continue. The tourists walk through during the day, marveling at the architectural oddities, the staircases to nowhere, the doors that opened into walls. But at night, when the lights dim and the crowds leave, the house remembers what it was built for. It remembers the spirits it was meant to hold. And if you listen closely in the silence, you might hear them still moving through the maze Sarah created, searching for a way out they will never find. The Winchester Mystery House stands as a monument to fear, to guilt, to the belief that the dead don't rest easy when their deaths are violent and unjust. Sarah Winchester tried to build them a home, and in doing so, she may have created the perfect cage. The spirits came, as the medium promised they would. And the house, with its infinite confusion, its deliberate chaos, made sure they stayed. To this day, people feel them. Walking behind you in empty halls. Standing in corners just outside your vision. Breathing softly in sealed rooms. The Winchester Mystery House was built to trap ghosts, and the terrible possibility remains that it worked. They're still there, caught between the walls and the nowhere staircases. Unable to leave, unable to rest. And anyone who enters becomes part of their world, if only for a moment. Walking the same halls the dead have walked for over a century. The house stands waiting, patient, alive with the presence of those who cannot escape. Sarah Winchester may have died, but her creation endures, a labyrinth for the lost, a prison for spirits, a place where the boundary between the living and the dead grows thin enough to touch. And if you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button, share this video with a friend who loves creepy stories, and don't forget to subscribe and press the bell icon, because this is just the beginning. The next story might be darker, and you won't want to miss it.